Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here then please do me a favour and hit that subscribe button. NFL free agency is right round the corner, so we're going to dive straight into it. My previous video was on the Browns free agents, what guys I think they will re-sign versus which guys I don't think. You know, spoiler alert, not many. So that does mean that the Browns have quite a few needs going into free agency this year. So I'm going to talk, I think I'll do 3 videos depending on how quick this one goes. We'll do quarterbacks, we'll do offense, and we'll do defense. You know, what players they'll be going after, what players I think they'll be targeting, all of that kind of good stuff. You know, free agency should be used to address your needs. You should never enter a draft needing to find starters, because you can never bank on a rookie being able to start right away. Of course, some do, but you should never take that risk. You know, most good teams use free agency to fill all of their needs before entering the draft, so they can essentially just use the draft to select depth pieces as well as guys who believe, you know, they believe can be starters down the line. I say all this to say that for every need the Browns have on their roster, they will sign a player in free agency to fill that role. If you need a quarterback, they will sign one or two in free agency. That doesn't mean they won't draft the guy, but that's how they should operate and how they will operate. And speaking of quarterbacks, that is where we will start. We've spoken all off season, quarterbacks. We've thrown names out from Matt Stafford to all kind of different guys, from, you know, drafting Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders, signing this guy. You know, it's been the cause of a lot of conversation amongst Browns fans and the Browns community this offseason, and rightfully so. So let's have a look at the free agent market for the Browns. You know, I think this is what they are going to do. I've said all off-season, I think the plan will be sign a veteran as a bridge starter and then draft a guy, whether that's at number 2 or later on in the draft. Quarterback is, of course, the most glaring position of need for the Browns. It's the most important position in sports. Now, this isn't the greatest free agency quarterback class, but it's certainly not the worst by any means. You know, it is incredibly rare, if not borderline impossible, for the top quarterbacks to enter free agency. Tom Brady played for 23 seasons and entered free agency once at 42 years old. Teams just don't let the best guys get to free agency, but that doesn't mean that there isn't value to be found in the free agent quarterback market. And, you know, plenty of teams have had success in doing so. As far as the Browns are concerned, there are currently only 2 quarterbacks on the roster for 2025, Deshaun Watson and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I know, how fucking depressing. Watson will spend the entire 2025 season on IR, as even if he does get healthy during the season, the Browns have no incentive to activate him off of IR, when they would essentially just be giving up insurance money and wasting a roster spot. So, you know, with it being more than likely that the Browns carry 3 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster, even if they kept DTR, they will still need to add at least 2 quarterbacks to that room. I expect them to probably acquire 2 quarterbacks as well as draft one. You know, a starter level bridge kind of guy, a potential backup, and, you know, a rookie to compete with DTR for those 3 roster spots. And, you know, in regards to a starter level bridge kind of guy, I've got six options that I think the Browns will target, and 3 guys that I wouldn't touch with a 12-foot pole. I've kind of tiered it in, you know, before everyone moans at me, because you'll see in a minute who is in the top of the tier. But the tiers are basically based on fit, guys that I would go after, and guys that I think the Browns would go after. It's kind of a combination of all of them. This isn't just like my favorite guys. This is also taking into account, you know, realistic options if it's what I think the Browns will do, as well as the fit with the team as well. So I say all of that to say, the guy that I have in my top option for a starter slash bridge is Kirk Cousins. Do the laughs. Come on, laugh at me. I'll take it all on the chin. Yep, I get it. But I just think when you factor in the fit, he's played with Kevin Stefanski before. He's played under this system for most of his career. He had success with Kevin Stefanski. Yes, he wasn't very good last year for Atlanta, but how much of that was change of scenery, getting used to his new guys? How much of that was the reports that we've seen about the shoulder injury, maybe hindering him as well? But the reason why I think this is the best option is because it won't cost you anything at all. Kirk Cousins will be released by the Falcons before Wednesday. I will be absolutely shocked if that is not the case. They will not be paying him $28 million to be their backup. He has a roster bonus due on the 12th when the new league year starts. They're not going to pay him that. They're going to, I don't care what they say. They're trying to get one desperate team to throw in a pick for them. It's not going to happen. He will be released, which means that Atlanta will be paying him 25 plus million next year to not be on their team. So it's the Russell Wilson route. You can get him for pretty much the veterans minimum. It will not cost you anything at all. You can bring him in. If he is cooked and he can't even get through training camp and preseason, you can cut ties with him. It's not going to hurt you at all. You're not giving up anything to get him. But if it does work out, I think you have arguably the best bridge option. Kirk at his best is probably better than all of these other guys. I get it. He's going, he's getting on a bit in age. He wasn't that great last season. But I just think that with the price that you'll be able to get him at, which is absolutely nothing, I think it's the best fit and the best option for the Browns in terms of the starter slash bridge level guys. I know people are going to laugh at it. I even laugh at it. I've had a running joke with one of my friends that it's gonna be Kirk Cousins. I've joked about him, the Kirk Cousins level, that if your quarterback is worse than Kirk Cousins, you need to find a new one, and if he's better, then you got a chance to win. I've made all those jokes, but it's just looking more and more likely. It makes too much sense. I think that will be the Browns' number one option that they will target, and I am happy for them to do so. As well. My next tier of guys, firstly is, again, this is probably going to cause some laughs, but Daniel Jones was obviously released by the Giants last year. Now, this is a bit of a meme of a quarterback, but in the end of the day, he was a first-round pick. He led the Giants to the playoffs. Yes, he can have some meme moments, but I think there's something you can get out of a Daniel Jones. None of these guys are going to be long-term solutions, so don't think that's what I'm trying to argue. But as a starter slash bridge, I think Daniel Jones is a more than okay option. I'd be happy to bring him in. You're probably looking at a 1 year, $6 to $8 million deal for that. Not that much at all, kind of similar to what you brought in Jameis on last year. So I would be interested. I think the Browns would be interested. So that's why I've got him in the next tier. Jameis Winston, speaking of, I've also got him in this tier as well. It's more to do with the familiarity. He played with the team last year. He knows what they're trying to run. I said it towards the end of last season that I wouldn't be against bringing him back. As I said in my other video of the Browns free agents, he wouldn't be my first choice, but I do think the Browns will keep their tabs on Jameis and maybe circle back to him if they're unable to get, let's say, a Kirk Cousins or a Daniel Jones. And I think he can be a serviceable bridge option for another year. Yes, the interceptions, you'd like them to be down, but he owns the Browns' all-time passing yards in a game record, so he must have something about him. But all seriousness, I do think Jameis, if push comes to shove, would be a more than okay bridge option next year again. And then finally on that next tier, I've got Gardner Minshew, who was released by the Raiders a couple of days ago. Now, I think Gardner is a solid bridge quarterback in the NFL. He's not a starter, but he can, as I said, he can fill that role as a bridge and kind of be that filler in between guys. He's shown in his NFL career that he can do that. Last year was not that pretty. 9 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. So not the best from him. But you think about the year before in Indy, he had a fairly decent year then when obviously Anthony Richards went down. He does seem to torch the Browns every time that he plays us. So he must like playing in Cleveland. So I wouldn't be against it at all, Gardner Minshew. I think that would be someone that the Browns would be interested in. I don't think it will be the top option, but, as that kind of next tier of guys, bring in Gardner Minshew, bring some good vibes in and, have a more than solid bridge option at quarterback for next year. And then the last tier of guys that I think the Browns will go after, Justin Fields. Now, you might be thinking he should be higher. The main reason he is this low is because I just don't see it. All the reports are that he'll either go back to the Steelers or with the Jets. So maybe he'd be higher if that wasn't the case. But I do also think, as an Ohio State fan, as someone that has really, really wanted Justin Fields to do well, yes, last season he looked better, but there's still a lot of bad tape out there. There's still a lot of missed reads. And in an offense that is going to be reliant on the quarterback making their reads, it might not be the best fit. And who knows, he might go and get himself a fairly substantial deal. He might get a 1 year, 10 million, maybe 2 years, 20 or something like that. So I just think the reason he's in that one for me is because I think it's more unlikely. But if they do go after a Justin Fields and draft a Jalen Milroe, let's say, I don't think that's the worst thing you could do. I think there's certainly worse options you could take. But as I said, I just think it's unlikely that Justin Fields is someone that the Browns will be looking to go after. And then finally on that, or the tier of guys that I think the Browns will be looking at as a starter/bridge is Jacoby Brissett. Again, some people might laugh at this one, but he's got familiarity with the team, with the scheme that the Browns are returning to this year. Go back to 2022. When he was at the Browns during Deshaun Watson's suspension. Over 2,600 yards. He had 12 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. He was more than serviceable. Everyone remembers his final game against the Buccaneers, that last-second touchdown throw on 4th down to David Njoku. I still think Jacoby Brissett can provide value at the quarterback position as a bridge. I know people will probably disagree with that, but for me, I think you could do worse than Jacoby Brissett, and I would take a Jacoby Brissett over a Joe Flacco, if I'm completely honest, mainly because of the age. And I just think a really good locker room presence as well, a really good leader. Think back to 2022, he was a really popular guy in that locker room. Everyone loved Jacoby, so I think you could do more things wrong than bringing in Jacoby Brissett. So he would be the last person that I'd have on those tiers of guys that I think the Browns will be targeting as a starter or bridge level quarterback. And then finally, the guys that I don't think the Browns will have any interest in and guys that I have no interest in. Aaron Rodgers, number one. Let's not bring that clown show to Cleveland. And people can joke and say Cleveland's already a clown show. Okay, fine. Well, let's not make it more of a clown show by bringing in Aaron Rodgers. Same kind of goes with Russell Wilson. I'm not interested at all. It is the optimum of 9-8 football is Russell Wilson right now. It's not very inspiring. That was on a Steelers team that always goes 9-8. So would that happen at the Browns? I doubt it. I'm not interested in Russell Wilson at this point in his career. I said last year that I think he's washed. I can't then sit here and say that, oh no, actually, if he comes to the Browns, it will actually be really good. No, I'm not interested at all. And then finally, one that might come as a surprise to some people, Sam Darnold. I'm just not interested in paying him over $30 million a year. Don't get me wrong, the Browns could do it. That's not what this is about. They could technically afford to sign Sam Darnold. You'd probably front load that deal similar to the Kirk Cousins deal with the Falcons last year. I'm just not interested. Yes, it was a great story last year for Sam to kind of have that come back and, kind of after such a difficult start to his career, revitalise his career and win 14 games and be one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. But I've got a bad taste in my mouth from those last two games. The game against the Lions, that obviously they could have got the number one seed, kind of shat the bed a little bit, and then the playoff game, he wasn't great either. I just don't think, as much as he, as I said, had an amazing bounce back year and looked really good, I just don't think it's sustainable. I don't think he's going to get any better than that. I think it's more of a flash in the pan type of thing, like with Geno Smith, shall we say, a few years ago. So I'm just not interested in giving him a big long-term deal, because you sign him to $35 million a year and then he reverts back to the same Sam Darnold, and we're all sat there scratching our heads going, why the fuck did we do that? So I'm not interested in Sam Darnold. I know some might be, but personally for me, I am not. And then finally, looking at kind of guys more in that potential backup role, whether that's the actual backup next year or the third quarterback, but guys that you would bring in to maybe fill that role if needed. My top two options for this one might again garner some laughs, but I've got Mac Jones number one. Look, he's a serviceable backup quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. Was serviceable with the Jags last year. Think back to his rookie season when he led the Patriots to the playoffs. He is a Kevin Stefanski quarterback. He will make the reads. He will throw to the open guys. He's not going to be out there running around trying to improvise. I just think the fit would be good. And I think if anyone can get anything out of Mac Jones, I think it would be Kevin Stefanski. Of course, these are potential backups. Hopefully you wouldn't have to see him start. But if he does, I think he could come in for a game or two and it not look like the worst thing we've ever seen at quarterback, which would be quite a lot for us as Browns fans. But you know what I mean. And in similar vein, Zach Wilson as well. Two young guys that, you're not giving up anything. You're not locking yourself down into these guys. You're taking a flyer. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You haven't lost anything. But if it does work, you could maybe have a high-end backup, or who knows, maybe Zach Wilson takes the Sam Darnold arc. You never know. He had an absolute terrible time at the Jets, but how much of that was the Jets? You know what I mean? So I think there could be much worse options as, potential backup / essentially room fillers at quarterback than Mac Jones and Zach Wilson. I think those two guys would be the top of my list if you could get those two as a kind of, as I said, potential backup or third string as well. Take a chance on them, see if you've got anything. If not, you've not risked anything. You've not given anything up to get them. And then the next tier of guys I've got for the potential kind of backup role, Joe Flacco, you could maybe argue putting him in the bridge role, but I just think with his age now, he's nearly 40. Last year looked worse than obviously the previous year with the Browns. I think the decline has begun. So I wouldn't be too comfortable with Flacco starting 10 games. But as a backup, maybe having to come in for 1 or 2 games, I certainly would not be against it. Again, similar to some of the other guys like Jacoby, he's played in this system. He's played under Kevin Stefanski, so you've kind of got that existing relationship already. Who knows? Kyle Trask is another one that, similar to Mac Jones and Zach Wilson, but not quite on the same level. We've not really seen much from Kyle Trask, of course, pretty much being the backup in Tampa for most of his career so far. But, they seem to be quite high on him. They kept him around. So as a backup option, I think there's worse guys out there. Again, with all of these guys, you're not taking any risk. Bring him into the building. See if he can offer anything. If not, okay. But, you took that kind of that chance. And then finally, on the list of guys on the second tier for potential backups, Taylor Heineke. I know a lot of people might not be as much for this one. But again, as a backup, I just don't think you can go that wrong. He's been paid a decent amount of money to be a backup in the NFL. He probably won't get that money now, which is why I'm, suggesting him on this list. But same with the other guys. I think you could go a lot more wrong with a backup quarterback than Taylor Heineke. He's athletic enough, good enough thrower of the ball. He's played in meaningful games towards the end of seasons. He's got that experience. So Taylor Heineke is one of the guys that I would be, not against, shall we say, bringing in as that kind of backup / third quarterback role. And then finally, on those guys, the ones that I'm not interested in, Carson Wentz, I just don't want to do that, to be honest. He's 32 now. Any time that he has had spells in games the last few years, it's looked pretty bad. I'm not really interested in doing that. Plus, just imagine all of the memes about how the Browns traded that second pick in 2017 and, for the Eagles to come up and get Wentz just for them to re-sign him nearly 10 years later. I'm not interested. Jimmy Garoppolo as well, lastly, as the last one I'm not interested in. At this point in his career, I'm not interested in Jimmy Garoppolo, not even as a backup. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you could get him on the veteran minimum, I wouldn't be that against it, but to be honest, I just don't really see why there would be any connection between him or the team to make that work for me. And then that is the free agents. So, guys that I think that the Browns will target as those starter to bridge role. For me, Kirk Cousins is the number one guy, and then after him, Daniel Jones, Jameis Winston, Gardner Minshew, and then maybe after that, Justin Fields or Jacoby Brissett. Not interested in Aaron Rodgers, not interested in Russell Wilson, and not interested in Sam Darnold, and I don't expect the Browns to be either. And then there's the backup options, kind of those, second or third choice quarterback. Matt Jones and Zach Wilson as the two top picks for me. And then Joe Flacco, Kyle Trask, and Taylor Heineke. But I do think there is one wild card in all of this, which is a trade for Malik Willis. Now, hear me out. Obviously not as a long-term option. None of these guys are as long-term options. But if you can bring in Malik Willis to compete for that backup role, hell, maybe even that bridge role, I think that is something that I would be interested in, and I think it's something the Browns would be interested in. There was reports that they had some interest in him back when he was drafted in 2022, was it? The Kenny Pickett draft. Obviously, they chose not to. The start of his career with Tennessee was not very good, but he wasn't given many opportunities. He goes to Green Bay last year, and he started 2 games, played in 7 in total, and looked really good. 74% completion percentage, over 500 yards in those 2 games, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He ran the ball as well. But what impressed me the most was he looked a lot more comfortable in the pocket. He was making his reads. He was throwing to guys. He wasn't forcing balls into double coverage and stuff like that, or players that were covered like he was his first 2 years. He was quite clearly going through his reads, going through his progressions, and delivering the ball on time. Something that was really impressive to see from him. He's still only 25 years old. As I said, the tape from his 2 starts last year is pretty good. I would certainly be interested in a trade for Malik Willis, whether that's as a third guy or even as the your potential bridge for next year as well. If let's say you draft a guy at 2, I would be more than interested in bringing in Malik Willis to kind of compete for that starter role to start the season. If you maybe want to sit your rookie. Definitely would be interested in that, and I definitely think that the Browns would be interested in that as well. I'm not sure what it would cost, maybe a 4th round pick. If that's the case, I would probably do it. I'm definitely interested in Malik Willis. Let's just say that. I might even do a video on him alone if it gets to a couple of weeks and there's no movement about it, because I do think it is a wild card that is definitely worth considering for the Browns. Someone I'm interested in, and someone that I think the Browns are interested in as well. So that is the quarterbacks. I will leave this video as that. I will then do another video for offense and defense as well. I'll run through the positions similar to this, but maybe not quite as much, but just trying to give, you know, a tiered of guys of what I think are more likely that they will target versus what guys I think are less likely they will target, and all of that good stuff. So as I said at the start, you know, the Browns are going to be signing guys, that is for sure. Anywhere that you think they have a need, they are going to be signing someone. They have cap space, don't worry about it. They can create a lot more if they need to. That is not the issue here. Don't get me wrong, I don't expect them to go and sign anyone for 30 million a year, because it's not really how they've operated in free agency. But I do expect, you know, 4 or 5, 8 to 10 million guys, shall we say. They're definitely going to be active this free agency, that is for sure. As I said, good teams make sure that they fill their needs before they get to the draft, and I expect the Browns to do that, even though that they weren't a good team last year. But that will do it for me today, guys. As I said, that's my thoughts on the quarterbacks. Laugh at me all you want, but yes, Kirk Cousins is my number one option. If it's not Malik Willis, I'll go and say that. Out of the free agents, it is Kirk Cousins. So I'll take the laughs. But, you know, my vision of Kirk Cousins and a Jalen Milroe, it's still alive. It's still alive. And until it's not, well, I'll keep talking about it. But that would do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you do enjoy my content, then please drop this video a like, hit the subscribe button. It's free, but it really, really helps out my channel. You can also check the links in the description to see where you can follow and interact with me on social media. As I always say, I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans, and even if I only get to talk to one fan a day, I'm happy, because I'm talking Browns football with the best fan base in the world. Thanks again for watching, guys. Enjoy free agency. Make sure that your notifications are on Twitter and all of those, you know, ESPN and everything, because I think it's going to be an eventful one, as it always is. But until next time, guys, and most importantly, go Browns.